Okay, we're going to look at how we can solve any of these types of percent problems using proportions. Now, if we remember, proportions is just a fancy word for equivalent fractions. Anytime you hear the word proportion in math, that means two equivalent fractions. So, for example, 1/2 equals 4/8. Those are equivalent fractions, and therefore 1/2 equals 4/8 is a proportion. Now, sometimes we can put an unknown into a proportion, such as 1/2 equals x over 8, or x/8, and that's also called a proportion. So we can solve proportions by finding the unknown. X equals 4 if 1/2 equals x/8, or x over 8. So let's set up proportions to solve these percent problems. I purposefully set up 3 different types of percent problems, and I want to show you how we can write equivalent fractions with unknowns to find out the answer to each one of these. So let's start with this one. 20 is what percent of 50? Of is a really important word here, and we'll see in just a second why that is. Okay, so let's set that up. I'm going to start by writing my first fraction. And I like to start with the percent as the first fraction. So anytime you have a percent, we know that the denominator is 100. Every percent is a certain number out of 100. So we're going to start with that one. Now, what percent? We don't know what the percent is. That's the unknown. That's what we're trying to find out. So that's where our x goes. I'm going to use a cursive x and put that right there. Now, I have to make that equal to another fraction. So we're going to use the 20 and the 50 to make our other fraction. Now, how do we know which number is the numerator and which number is the denominator? That's where this word of comes into play. Of 50. That means 20 is out of 50. So of 50 means 50 is the denominator. So we're going to put that 50 down below. And the 20 goes up top. 20 is the numerator. So now we have x over 100 equals 20 over 50. Here's where the trick comes into play. We'll talk about why this is true eventually. But for right now, I want to show you that when you're solving a proportion, there's a quick and easy way to find the answer. And that is, you take these two numbers, the numerator over here and the denominator over here, and multiply them. They're diagonal from each other. The two numbers that are diagonal from each other, you multiply. 20 times 100. That equals 2,000. So 2,000 is the product when we multiply 20 times 100. And then we take that number, 2,000, and divide it by the number that's left over, which is 50. 2,000 divided by 50 gives us the answer to our problem. So 20 is what percent of 50? Well, we can find that out by taking 2,000 and dividing it by 50. We get 40 when we do that. 2,000 divided by 50 is 40, so the answer is 40%. So we can say x equals 40, and then 40% is our answer. We'll circle that. It's always good to circle your answer. Okay, so that's how to do it with this problem. Let's try these other two as well. Let's set them both up. 25 is 10% of what number? This is a percent problem written in a different way. Now we know the percent, that's a given. We have the part of the number, we just don't have the whole here. So let's set it up. Let's start with a fraction, rather the percent. 10%, we'll set that up as a number over 100. And we know it's 10%, so it's 10 out of 100. So that's given to us. And now we have to figure out the missing number. So how do we know where 25 goes? Well, it's 25 is an of what number? So the of part, that's the x, that's going to go down at the bottom. just like up here, that 50 went in the bottom because it was of 50. This is of what number? So that's the unknown. That's kind of an ugly X. But that's where it's going to go. That's better. Okay, and we'll put our 25 up here. Conveniently, we have a proportion we can work with. 25 times 100 is 2,500. 2,500 divided by 10 is 250. Remember, we're multiplying the diagonals, dividing it by the number that's left over. So we have 2,500 divided by 10 is 250, and that's the answer. 25 is 10% of 250. Let's just put an x equals over here, just so we know. Equals, boy, that's a really horrible x. All right, I'll circle the 250. There's our answer. Okay, the last one. Now, sometimes we look at these problems and think, oh, these are the easiest kinds because we have that of right in between these two numbers, and that means all we have to do is multiply these. We turn this into a decimal, 0.25 times 16. But let's solve this as a proportion, just to show that we can use proportions to solve percent problems in this format as well. 25%, we're going to start with our percent fraction, a number over 100, and we're given the percent, so it's 25 over 100 equals, now we have to figure out where to put these numbers, of 16, so that 16 is going down at the bottom, and the unknown is up top. Okay, now all we have to do is multiply the diagonals and divide by the leftover number. So we have 16 times 25. That's 400, okay? We know that 4 25s is 100, so 16 25s is 400. 400 divided by 100 is 4. So what's 25% of 16? It's 4. So there it is. 4 is our answer. We use proportions to solve each type of percent problem. And I encourage you to practice this method as a fail-safe way to find the answer to any percent problem. The most important thing to remember is that you're setting it up as a proportion and you need to know where each one of these numbers goes. For the percent fractions, the 100 is always on the bottom, is always the denominator. And for the other fraction, the number that ends in of, that comes after of, is always the denominator also. If it's of what number, that's going to be the unknown. If it's of 16, 16 will be the denominator. Of 50, 50 is the denominator. I hope this is helpful, and let me know if you have any questions.